all the time I've spent on the internet, I have identified the two worst places to be. The first one being, of course, BuzzFeed, and the second one being the despicable PragerU. Now, PragerU, being the conservative hellhole that it is, has come up with a lot of shit. But this video in particular that I'm going to talk about has infuriated me beyond any sort of reasonable measure. This atrocity is named Is Fascism Right or Left? And you can probably already tell what bullshit claim you're going to make in this one.
He's a fascist.
Oh boy, you know you're in for a treat when you see this lovely face in a political video. You know, the same man that made the outrageous claims that Obama was a communist and wanted to destroy America. He's also a strong believer in the conspiracy theory that LBJ had Kennedy killed so he could institute a communist policies in America. He is none other than the dreaded Dinesh D'Souza, I don't know. Even I, as a man who hates the left, knows the difference between moderate Democrats and fucking Stalin, unlike most modern conservatives.
For decades, this has been a favorite smear of the left aimed at those on the right. Every Republican president, for that matter, virtually every Republican, since the 1970s has been called a fascist, now more than ever. This label is based on the idea that fascism is a phenomenon of the political right.
Because it is. It is on the political right. Everybody knows this except you conservatives that refuse to accept that the right isn't the perfect bastion of freedom that you want it to be.
The left says it is, and some self-styled white supremacists and neo-Nazis embrace the label. But are they correct?
Yes. Yes, they are correct.
To answer this question, we have to ask what fascism really means. What is its underlying ideology? Where does it even come from? These are not easy questions to answer. We know the name of the philosopher of capitalism, Adam Smith. We know the name of the philosopher of Marxism, Karl Marx. But who's the philosopher of fascism? Yes, exactly. You don't know. Don't feel bad. Almost no one knows.
Me personally, I would say the founder of fascism was Benito Mussolini, even though a lot of uneducated people might say Hitler. Although some might say it is Giovanni Gentile.
This is not because he doesn't exist, but because historians, most of whom are on the political left, had to erase him from history in order to avoid confronting fascism's actual beliefs. So let me introduce him to you. His name is Giovanni Gentile.
This claim is outright absurd. The only reason why most people don't know who Giovanni Gentile is because fascism has not been studied nearly as much as other ideologies, such as capitalism and Marxism. Fascism has barely been touched ever since the end of World War II, and most likely will never be touched again if people like you keep spreading false information.
Born in 1875, he was one of the world's most influential philosophers in the first half of the 20th century. Gentile believed that there were two diametrically opposed types of democracy. One is liberal democracy, such as that of the United States, which Gentile dismisses as individualistic, too centered on liberty and personal rights, and therefore selfish. The other, the one Gentile recommends, is true democracy, in which individuals willingly subordinate themselves to the state.
They are, of course, making it seem as if that's the only reason Gentile had for believing that liberal democracy doesn't work. If they had read The Doctrine of Fascism, which was written by both Gentile and Mussolini, they would find a plethora of other reasons to dislike liberal democracy. For instance, on page 34 of the version produced by Ardita Publishers, which I have in my hands right now, it reads, "Democratic regimes may be described as those under which the people are, from time to time, deluded into the belief that they exercise sovereignty, while all the time real sovereignty resides in and is exercised by other and sometimes irresponsible and secret forces. Democracy is a kingless regime infested by many kings who are sometimes more exclusive, tyrannical, and destructive than one, even if he be a tyrant. As you can see, there is more than just one reason presented here to hate liberal democracy."
Like his philosophical mentor Karl Marx, Gentile wanted to create a community that resembles the family, a community where we are all in this together. It's easy to see the attraction of this idea. Indeed, it remains a common rhetorical theme of the left.
The fact that he simply believes in the family has nothing to do with the right or left. If you asked a conservative dad what was most important in his life, he'd either say his country or family. Loving your family or having a bond of togetherness with other people has nothing to do with political beliefs. To say that this is only on the left is absurd. Humans need to feel like they're quote unquote in this together with somebody else to get through even the most basic of tasks.
But Gentile was a man of the left. He was a committed socialist. For Gentile, fascism is a form of socialism, indeed, its most workable form. While the socialism of Marx mobilizes people on the basis of class, fascism mobilizes people by appealing to their national identity as well as their class. Fascists are socialists with a national identity.
I can't believe this. This is absolutely fucking bullshit. Nobody can take this seriously, right? In the book that I quoted earlier, The Doctrine of Fascism, there are 3 whole pages dedicated to smashing socialism. It directly says on page 32, fascism also denies the immutable and irreparable character of the class struggle, which is the natural outcome of this economic conception of history. Above all, it denies that the class struggle is the preponderating agent in social transformations. Fascism outright says that the class struggle cannot be fixed and is a natural occurrence. Does that sound very fucking leftist to you? I didn't think so, but as you can see, Prager U pretends to do their research and tell you the facts. This is obviously a massive contradiction to that notion.
German fascists in the 1930s were called Nazis, basically a contraction of the term National Socialist.
Okay, I'm going to clear this up once and for all. Nazis are not fascists. National Socialism is an entirely different ideology than fascism. Sure, they have similarities, but it's absurd to group Nazis and Italian fascists like me under one banner. The only reason it happened during World War II was for the sake of survival against the Allies.
For Gentile, all private action should be oriented to serve society. There's no distinction between the private interest and the public interest. Correctly understood, the two are identical. And who is the administrative arm of society? It's none other than the state. Consequently, to submit to society is to submit to the state, not just in economic matters, but in all matters.
Fascism does not have a firm state control of the economy like communism does, okay? There's a big difference between economic liberty and social liberty. Sure, the state makes sure that your business is in line with the national interest, which is necessary to ensure a thriving society, but other than that, everything is privatized, including businesses. So saying that the state was in control of the economy is absurd.
Since everything is political, the state gets to tell everyone how to think and what to do. It was another Italian, Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator of Italy from 1922 to 1943, who turned Gentile's words into action. In his Dottrina del Fascismo, one of the doctrinal statements of early fascism, Mussolini wrote, "All is in the state, and nothing human exists or has value outside the state."
Wow, they finally mentioned something from the book that I've been quoting for the entire video. Except this time, they're only using one quote from the entire fucking book to summarize their bullshit points. They're not going to mention the part where Mussolini and Gentile denounce socialism in its entirety, are they? No, of course they're fucking not. Why would they? It takes a lot of mental gymnastics to believe in what they're saying right now.
He was merely paraphrasing Gentile. The Italian philosopher is now lost in obscurity. But his philosophy could not be more relevant because it closely parallels that of the modern left. Gentile's work speaks directly to progressives who champion the centralized state. Here in America, the left has vastly expanded state control over the private sector, from healthcare to banking, from education to energy.
Once again, fascism does not in any way implement state control over the economy. And although fascism does take control of education for the purpose of indoctrination, they do not in any way control healthcare or energy. Once again, social and economic liberty are two separate entities.
This state-directed capitalism is precisely what German and Italian fascists implemented in the 1930s. Leftists can't acknowledge their man Gentile because that would undermine their attempt to bind conservatism to fascism. Conservatism wants small government so that individual liberty can flourish. The left, like Gentile, wants the opposite, to place the resources of the individual and industry in the service of a centralized state. To acknowledge Gentile is to acknowledge that fascism bears a deep kinship to the ideology of today's left. So they will keep Gentile where they've got him, dead, buried, and forgotten. But we should remember, or the ghost of fascism will continue to haunt us. I'm Dinesh D'Souza for Prager University.
Conservatism is in no way for small government. They put on a facade of small government, but that's not at all what they want. Although I do have to say that people calling conservatives fascist is absurd, it is a fact that fascism began on the right and it will always stay on the right. No matter how much conservatives want the right to be perfect and stainless, it's not. The left wing isn't stainless either, but the longer that conservatives pretend that the right is perfect, the more absurd and laughable they'll seem. Thanks for watching, hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you the next time I get angry.